1240 Hot News Talk Radio. So glad to be here with you on this beautiful Tuesday morning. How are you today, Mark?
I'm good, Sabrina. How are you?
Doing great. You realize that there's never been a better time to buy or sell a home.
You're exactly right. Tell us why.
Well, inventory's down. If you're looking to sell your home, put your house on the market, inventory's down. What does that mean for sellers?
Well, it means there's a lot less competition.
Which means they're going to get a better overall sales price when they sell their home. I mean, are we not listing homes, and if they're priced right, are they not selling quickly?
They're going very fast.
We need more listings. We've got agents standing by right now at Sabrena Realty just waiting to hear from you, wanting to come out and list your home and tell you about our competitive commission rates. What else, Mark? What else is important besides our competitive commission rates? What don't we charge?
Well, we don't have the administration fee that most all offices have.
We don't have any hidden fees. If we don't sell your home, we don't get paid.
That's right.
And we're also looking for buyers out there because there's never been a better time to buy either. Interest rates are like at 3 to 4%, depending on what type of loan that you get. It's a great time to buy a home. And we are having a buyer-seller seminar. When is that date? March the 3rd.
That's right.
March the 3rd at the Hickory Valley Retirement Center. That's going to be a lunch and learn from 11:30 to 1. That's a Thursday. And we're going to feed you. It's free. We're going to share all of our vast knowledge. We've partnered with People's Home Equity. And we're going to be there at the Hickory Valley Retirement Center at 6705 Ballard Drive. And we will remind our listeners of that at the bottom of the hour. But we have a very special guest here with us today.
We sure do.
I tell you, and today it just so happens to be the last day of early voting. The election's a week from today. That's right. Unbelievable. I tell you, time flies. Well, here on the Sabrena Realty Hour, we like to talk about all things real estate and community, and we even mix it up with a little politics from time to time.
That's right.
We have with us today one of the candidates that's on the ballot, and that is none other than the infamous Sterling Jeton here. He's running for the assessor of property. We've really gotten to know Sterling over the past several months, and I can tell you, he sure seems to be a fine man, does he not, Mark?
He's first class.
He's become a very good friend, and unless he's got me fooled, I think Sterling Jeton may just be the one. Well, Sterling, how are you doing today? We appreciate you for joining us.
Thank you, Sabrina. It's good to be here. It's good to be with you and Mark. And I would say that I've turned some people your way to sell their house. And I think Elgin Gray's even bought a house from you lately.
He sure did. Sure did. He's a longtime client. And that's what we're all about, building those long-term relationships where people come back in 5 years and 10 years. It's all about building those long-term relationships with our clients.
Well, it's been good to get to know you and Mark, and it is a good time to list a house. It's a great time to sell a house. So I would encourage everybody to get out. If you're thinking about, just call Sabrena and call her agents, and they'll list that, have it sold quickly, and put you in a brand new house, and you'll start out the summer
and
right.
Before we start talking politics, let's give them that phone number they need to call, Mark.
It's 423-499-7780. That's 499-7780.
Well, Sterling, tell us a little bit about yourself for listeners out there that may not know you. Kind of just give us a little history of where you're from, where you were born, and kind of where you grew up and all that good stuff.
Well, I grew up right here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and off of Highway 58. Was raised by a single mom. I have two brothers, one brother and a sister, and we all went to school at J.B. Brown in Central. My sister actually went to Tyner, and so we have been in this area all of our lives. We had a great opportunity to play football and baseball at the great legendary Central High School, even though it was on Highway 58. And that was a great opportunity. We see that Central still has an awesome alumni group. They meet every Thursday or once a month on a Thursday. And it's been good to get to know some of the old Central football players and baseball players. From there, I went to MTSU and went there and needed to grow up a little bit. So I dropped out of college and decided to go a different way.
What'd you do? What'd you decide to do?
Volunteered and went in the United States Army.
That'll make you grow up quick.
That'll make you grow up real quick. It'll trim you down, strengthen you up, it provides leadership skills for you.
Yeah.
And so from that point, I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, Fort Gordon, Georgia. And then from Fort Gordon, Georgia, I went to Fulda, West Germany, patrolled the East-West German border. And as I looked into the East-West German border, or looked into the East German country, it was just something to behold, to see that there were people over there who couldn't get out, who couldn't have food, but yet they were telling those people they were keeping us out.
Right.
And that was very interesting. That impacted my life. That really gave me an opportunity to say, I'm going to go back when I leave this country and begin to make a difference. And when I came back, got out in 1981, began to volunteer with different campaigns.
Well, I want to thank you very much for your service. That means a lot, because if it wasn't for the sacrifices of men and women that go and protect our freedoms, I don't know where we'd be today. And, you know, I don't know if I've ever told you this. My oldest son is actually in the Army Reserves. And when he first wanted to enlist, I tried to talk him out of it, but it was just in his heart to go and serve his country. And so we had to get behind him and support him. But I appreciate all of our men and women that serve this country. It means the world to me. Now, I know that you're married, right?
I am married to Kay Hannah. She went to Tyner High School. She's part of the Hannah family from Webb Road. And then they moved over to Ringo in later years. But we have two boys, Andrew, who's 24, and Stephen, who's 22. Stephen's graduated from MTSU. Just had a phone call with him this morning saying, Dad, I've got a decision to make on a career, so I just want your input. And then Andrew, he's should finish up with his associate's degree at Chattanooga State.
Yeah, that's
in
great.
December. So
that's great. I know you're proud of them.
Yeah, they're great young men. You know, as parents, we always want to encourage them and hope they're getting better, and because we're always going to be their parents. But we have two fine boys, and we're blessed by that.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Sterling. Well, now I'm kind of curious as to why you entered this race. What kind of prompted you to run for the assessor of property?
That's a good question. I had left the assessor's office, been out 4 years, and I began to get some phone calls from people inside the office, and they began to encourage me to run. And I told them, I said, well, we don't know if Mr. Bennett's not running.
Right.
And so, but they said, well, we would ask you to do that. And then I had a friend call that's been active in the Republican Party for 40 years. He said, I want you to really pray about something. I said, what is that? And he said, I want you to pray about running for assessor of property. And so we began that process, and just the longing of that wasn't on our radar. And then it seemingly began to be a bleep on our radar. And so as we went through the process of praying and searching out, seeking wise counsel, we came to the conclusion, not only myself and my boys and our church family that we're in, that they just gave us 100% affirmation we should do that. And so we stepped out into the first time of being a candidate in a political race, and that's been a real challenge.
Yeah, and you've never ran for anything before, have you? So this is all new to you.
It's new. I've been a campaign chairman. I have been in the political process since I come back from Germany, but as a candidate, no, and that is a different seat to sit in.
Oh, yeah. Well, I appreciate the fact that you said that you sought wise counsel and you were diligent in your prayer before just getting in the office. I know that for myself, back when the commission seat that I currently serve in, when it became available, I had a number of people reach out to me as well and ask me to run. And I didn't just get out there and say, oh, yeah, I'm going to run for this. I did a lot of praying. And especially when you're married and you have a family, a campaign affects everyone involved. And so Mark and I prayed diligently. We met with people, talked to people over a course of several weeks, and there were just so many confirmations that lined up, and that's why I ran. So I appreciate the fact that you didn't just jump in there hastily, that you were diligent, you prayed about it, you talked to people, and really thought it through before getting in, because it's a big commitment to run a campaign. Is it everything you expected and then some?
Running a county-wide race, 550 square miles of this county, and I've tried to cover every inch of it.
Yeah.
And from going from Saudi Daisy to Appleton, where we live, there's a lot of miles driven, a lot of phone calls, a lot of texting that takes place. Last night, I left my house at about 6:30 driving to Birchwood.
Wow.
And so I went up there and stayed with some folks who's writing a book, Shannon Wright, who's written a book on about God's glory, the change that's taken place in her life from being a real athlete and 18 surgeries, I think. And so went up there to just encourage them. They had a book signing, but just to get to meet people from Birchwood to Sell Creek to Saudi Daisy, down in from Appleton to St. Elmo to East Lake, and get around and meet people. And we live in a great place.
Right.
We really do. We're very blessed to live here in Chattanooga and in Hamilton County.
And a lot of territory to cover there. I know you've been working hard because I see you just about everything I go to. So that's a good sign. Well, now you indicated that you worked in the assessor's office. Kind of tell us about how that all came about when you started working there and how long you worked there and kind of what your responsibilities were in that office.
I got a call from Claude Ramsey back in 1985, and he asked me if I would entertain. I had known Claude. He coached me in baseball, and he just asked me, said, would you think about coming to work at our office? And so I did, and went there and began to work in the process of data collecting. We just go door to door and get information.
Wow.
And there was 4 of us that were hired during that time. And from that time, we went and got to begin to take our appraisal classes. Then we got promoted to lead appraisers, and each one of us had 3 men in a car, and we did the first mass reappraisal in Hamilton County in 10 years at that time. We physically went to every single house, every door, every single piece of property, knocked on doors, walked around the houses. It was a huge task. A lot of retirees from DuPont and Combustion were hired. And those men were great encouragement to us younger men who were leading them, but they were teaching us how to lead. Wow. And so that was a great opportunity. And then as we continued through the process of just being an appraiser, and each reappraisal every 4 years, getting the battle scars from that, people coming in, they really are want to know about their appraisal. And
they don't like it when it goes up, do they?
No, they don't like it at all. And so it's been good. I went there, and then I began, as Mr. Bennett came in, I got promoted to senior appraiser. I've worked duplexes, apartments. I've been in charge of the marinas and the boat houses for years, and then also mobile home parks. And then helped Alan Johnson with the land that is around the lake, and also the Brow property. So wow. I've done a multitude of things in that office, and feel that now that I'm ready to take on the office and lead it.
It sounds like you're well-rounded. Well, I'll just tell you, Sterling, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Bill Bennett, our current assessor. Think the world of him and his wife. They're just great people. What's his reaction to you running for this office?
Well, first of all, we didn't know that Bill was running. So when I began the process 14 months ago, I went to talk to him.
Right.
And he said, well, Sterling, I don't know what I'm doing just yet. And I said, well, I have to get out there and begin the process. And he said, you do that. And he said, I won't make my decision till July or August of last year. And so he actually called me on a Saturday morning. And he said, I think you need to know that I'm not going to be running. And I'll announce that in a few days, but you have to keep that quiet. And so I didn't even tell my wife at that point in time. And I finally called him back and said, can I tell my wife at least? And he said, yes, sure, do that. And there was no endorsement coming from him or Claude at the time.
Right.
And then as other people got in the race, they called me and met with me, and they just said, hey, we would like to support you, and we'll just do it, and we'll just stand back and watch what happens. But as we did the kickoff on August the 27th of 2015, Mr. Ramsey said, we think you would be the best candidate, and so we want to help you go through the process. And they have just done that by encouragement, words of wisdom, and giving me direction, never been a candidate before. So it's been good to have 2 seasoned politicians, but better than that, 2 men of character that I have respected and known for many years. So it's been a real true blessing to have them encouraging that.
Yeah, that's great.
You know, that is a big endorsement to have the 2 men that have led that office for decades to say that out of everybody running, you're the one that has the skill set and the integrity to lead it forward.
Well, it's very humbling, one, to see that for the last 36 years, I think, Mark, that they have been, either Claude or Bill have been in that office. They are, Hamilton County has 3 lifetime assessment award winners in Hamilton County, and all 3 of those men are endorsing me. And one of them's Claude, one of them's Bill, and one of them's Bubba Ricketts. And that comes from the state looking at how the assessor's office has been ran. And so it is a huge endorsement individually as those men, but also coming from the state to say we recognize those men as people who have led the assessor's office at a great level, that they received this award. So I'm very humbled by it.
That's a good point.
Well, I'm kind of curious, and you can take your time answering this. I'm on kind of got a 2-part question. I'm just curious as to what you consider to be the most important function of the office, and from your observation, what would you think are the strengths and weaknesses of that office? And I guess then you can kind of tell what your goal would be to make the weaknesses a little better, because I know you have to have a vision.
Yes, obviously the people that have worked in there that have the knowledge and the understanding is the strength.
Mm-hmm.
We have 12 people right now that have over 32 years experience.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Which is great, because it's been a great place to work for them. But it's also a detriment because they can retire at any point in time.
Right.
And so the strength of it is the people, but the weakness of it can be the people's opportunity to leave.
Wow.
And so we have to be ready to take those people and fill their roles.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the big things is cross training.
Yeah.
To make sure that we're getting people trained to fill those roles, not just when they're gone, but begin to understand what they're doing in the process. So we have to cross train in that office more. So as soon as somebody comes into office, they're new, they get trained on their specific job. But then we start looking for 3 and 4 and 5 years down the road, whose place are they going to take? What is it going to take to bring them up to the level? And you don't get 32 years of experience overnight. And so we need those people begin to pour back into them. And they would say that's probably been a weakness over the years.
Right.
You had people that were there and they're going to be there for a long time. So when people have left, there's been a void of filling that role because of lack of knowledge.
Right. Well, if you had 3, I'm sure you've got like 3 main things that you've got in mind that you want to do if elected to make that office perform better. What would 3 things be that were top on your list that you would try to implement pretty quickly if elected?
Well, the number one thing would be taking leadership and cross-training the younger people in the roles in which they have, just in case they decided to retire or in case they got sick.
Right.
That would leave a huge vacuum. So the very first thing would be cross-training and getting those people who have been established in appraisal or maybe in personal property, or those who are in mapping. We need somebody that can step into a role. So the immediate thing is saying, all right, we need to find the 5 or 6 people and start cross-training them.
Right.
And then they need to start cross-training somebody to take their place. And it needs to be happening even now, but it really needs on September the 1st, it really needs to kick in and everybody take their role of responsibility of, if we can say, discipleship, or mentorship. Take somebody and look and say, here's who fits the need and can do the job, and we want to begin to train them. So that's the first thing. GPS. And let me say, cross-training doesn't cost anything extra. It doesn't cost the county anything extra. Matter of fact,
makes sense.
It actually is going to probably save, because in our computer world, we may not have to replace some of those people. So it could save actually salary money. The second thing is GPS. We have a multitude of cars that are out on the road, and there's a safety issue.
Right.
We have on the each side of the river, we have 2 sets of guys that are on a residential, and they go into the backwoods. If there's a house being built, they get stuck. We may not be able to find them if the radio's not working. The cell phone may not work.
Right.
You can pull it up on GPS. You can tell the record exactly where to go. If the car was stolen, you can find the car. Saves the county money.
You make sure they're not hanging out the donut shop too, right?
I don't think we have too many of them at the donut shop, I hope, or behind wherever the guy from the city was hiding for that long period of time. But we have great people in there, but it also helps on time management. We can fall into traps of how we do things, so it will help us on our time management, and then it helps us on our fuel efficiency. When you're saving time and not running that car back and forth 3 times when you could have done it once, it saves on fuel efficiency. There lies in saving the county money again. And so the first 2 things I want to do, hopefully, would be save the county money, that either maybe we could pour it back into some of our employees to get them a raise, send them off to a different school that it will equip them better, that we're more efficient to save the county money, but turn out the best product that they can have.
Well, I like to hear that you're looking out for the taxpayer. That definitely means a lot to me as a county commissioner and as a voter.
Yes.
So, and kind of going from that, Sterling, what would you consider to be probably the most important attribute that an individual should have to oversee that office?
Well, there are two things, and I say leadership and integrity, but you don't have real good leadership unless you have integrity.
Yeah.
Integrity is a word that's probably been abused at some point, and it is a real honesty. It's not just saying I'm honest. It's following through with your honesty. It's letting your yes be yes and your no be no.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that there's not some flexibility. Appraisal are just an opinion. You could send 10 appraisers out. You're in the real estate business.
Exactly.
You can send them out and you can come up with a bunch of different appraisals. And you always want, if you're selling, you want the highest one.
Exactly.
And so those things are important, but it is integrity and leadership and leadership that's consistent. And you don't get that. You either have it, you just don't all of a sudden get it. And so when you have it, you have to follow through with it. And I think the list of 15 former employees would say, as they signed on with me, that they would say, hey, we have seen this consistently out of Sterling over the 27 years we worked with him.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Yeah, I would think it's very, very important to have someone of high integrity, because I want to know that things are being done right. I want to know that there's not any buddy deals being given to any developers or anything like that, that everybody's being treated the same.
I heard somebody once, speaking of integrity, they said integrity is what you're doing when nobody's watching.
That's exactly right. And I think as living a life, we shouldn't have to talk about it. It should be something that we see. And again, with the support I have from prior, and I even believe those who are in the office, they would say that they've seen that lifestyle in me. So I know it's hard for a voter just to recognize that in a moment, but I would ask that they just really trust and get out and vote for the best man. But I would encourage people to get out and vote, because we have found on the campaign trail that many people don't vote.
Where are you at on the ballot?
I am on the back of the ballot in the center at the bottom. Yeah. And so when you go to find the assessor's office, find Sterling Jetton or Sterling Jetton, however you want to say it, just make sure you find Sterling and then mark the little egg beside it.
Well, and when we come back after the break, we're going to talk some more, Sterling, and let you talk more about your vision. And we'll also, we'll tell any listeners where the voting locations are. And we'll go over the hours in which they can go out today and next week, and give you an opportunity. And also you can to give them the information on how they can find you or find out more about you. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in to the Sabrena Realty Hour. We will be back here after the break. Again, if you are thinking about selling your home or buying your home, please call one of our agents at 423-499-7780. That's 499-7780. They are sitting by just waiting to hear from you, eager to hear from you. And you can also visit us on our website at SabrenaRealty.com.
Thank you for listening. You're listening to Hot News Talk Radio right here at 1240 a.m. And this is the Sabrena Realty Hour with a special guest, Sterling Jetton, running for assessor of property.
Hello and welcome back to the Sabrena Realty Hour here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Want to remind you that next Thursday on March the 3rd, that Sabrena Realty is partnering with People's Home Equity, and we are hosting a lunch and learn at Hickory Valley Retirement Center, which is located at 6705 Ballard Drive. We'll be providing free lunch, and we'll be sharing all kinds of knowledge, whether you're thinking about buying a home, investing in a home, selling your home, whatever you're thinking about doing pertaining to real estate. We're going to be giving all kinds of advice. We're going to be talking about loans, different loan types, what the current rates are. So this is going to be a really, really good, informative meeting. We'd love for you to come out. It's free. Again, that's going to be next Thursday, March the 3rd from 11:30 to 1 at the Hickory Valley Retirement Center. And we are joined again here with Sterling Jaton, who is a candidate for the assessor of property here in Hamilton County. And I just want to start back off asking you, Sterling, I've read some reports that say, I've heard some, I guess your opponents say that one thing they want to do if elected is they want to get in the office. They want to modernize it, revolutionize it, bring it up to technology. However, I've read some conflicting letters from employees that currently work in the office, and they state that the office is very much up to date. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting. In 2010, our office began to send out bids through the county to get update of the server and our data, and just a whole new program. And as they went through the process, they ended up with 4 people. One of them went bankrupt. Wow. And then one of them was joined up with another team, and they didn't really have the language, the computer language that would carry over to our technology. And then, so therefore we ended up with 2, and they had a bid between, I think it's Minotron and Patriot Properties. Patriot Properties was already being used by one of the biggest counties in Tennessee, Davidson County, which we were able to go there. Our office was able to go there and look at that, see what it was, how it worked. And it had the best knowledge and understanding of what it is to do a mass appraisal. And so it began the 2-year process of filtering that in, working it into our system, making sure the language is computing together. And I don't know all the computer language but in that process, we began to use it in 2013. So it's only 3 years old, and it has a lot of updating that can take place from it. That does take taxpayers' dollars. So it is a process of expanding and using the data that Patriot, which is called Assess Pro, and it's very good. We actually have tablets that we'll be able to put in the cars. Yeah. And in there, those appraisers will be able to go out and not only take a picture, but all that, gather all the information instead of going back and keying it, have it keyed in by somebody. They'll be able to key it in over the next several months. So it's going to save time and process of people inside the office. And so now we're in that process. 2017 will be a reappraisal, and it'll be the second time Assess Pro has been used by Hamilton County. We continue to look at Davidson County. There are other counties now in the state of Tennessee that are using it. It is a great product.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. So, in today's world, you have to embrace technology.
Yes.
And we have to be thinking of how we can be more efficient and that type of stuff. Now, you just said that in 2017, you'll be looking at reappraising. And that was one of my questions, is when will the next reappraisal take place, and how frequently is that done?
The reappraisal takes place in the large counties in the state of Tennessee every 4 years. Okay. And then there's different breakdowns for smaller counties, and the state has appraisers who go in and do that. We, Davidson, Hamilton, Shelby, and Knox County, our assessor's office do that because we're equipped to do that. There's a great opportunity for the new assessor in September when they will be sworn in. They will be immediately thrown into the process of the reappraisal starting in 2017. So it doesn't need to be somebody without experience. It doesn't need to be just a business person. It needs to somebody knows what's the process and what's taking place. And it's not a good time to be having somebody learning definitions and what's taking place. So it would be great to have someone who has experience.
And it sounds like that you feel like if you were elected, you can hit the ground running day one.
I can hit the ground running. I've been through 6 reappraisals, so I have a good idea what's going to take place. And so I look forward to doing that. And I just really hope and pray that the taxpayers of Hamilton County will entrust me with that opportunity to do that.
Well, I have a lot of friends in the real estate industry. I've made a lot of friends. And for any of my fellow realtors out there, why is it important to us realtors who serves in that office?
Oh, the data we collect, the information that we share. And I would really like to build a trust with the board of realtors where we could come in and do classes, and they could help us with classes. And so we would be helping, it would be government working with the private sector, equipping each other to do the best job. Because when you sell a house, you just established a new home, which is going to put people in schools and people on our roads.
That's
and all
true.
that. It's going to establish, it's going to broaden our tax base, which is going to keep the tax rate down. You as a commissioner don't want to have to vote for a tax increase.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I do not.
And none of our commissioners, you didn't have to vote on a tax increase. The mayor didn't give you a tax
Thank
increase.
God one wasn't presented.
Yes. So the more we broaden the tax base, the more we see development take place. It keeps our tax rate down. It allows us to have tax dollars to spend to put in better schools, put in better roads. So I want to work with the board of realtors and the real estate people, also putting that more information out on the internet that you can use it quickly and have it make it efficient. And then if there's something wrong with our information, you would be able to see that and call us and say, hey, we need to verify. We have something different. It helps. It's a checks and balance for both of us.
Right.
You may have something wrong. We may have something wrong.
That's true.
It's again, it's government and private industry working together for the betterment of the people in which they serve.
Well, that means a lot to me that you actually want to partner with the real estate community, because I think that is important, especially sharing information, because if we're sharing information and we're making sure that we have the most up-to-date and accurate information, that's a win-win for both. And that's not a relationship that I believe currently exists to the degree you're talking about. And I know we have a great relationship with our current assessor. I can call him up anytime. I think any real estate agent can. But to really have that where you're coming in, training, and even willing to offer classes, I think that would be a great plus for realtors for sure.
We know that people come in, it's fearful for them to come in and contest the value every reappraisal. Right. And we will be open to any groups of garden clubs or anybody that says we want to understand what you're doing and how you're doing it, to break down that barrier of fear and really reach out to the community to let them see this is not a place of fear. It's a job that we have to do. It's mandated by the state that we reappraise, and it is for equity. It's across the board to bring values up to being equal as things have sold and turned over in the prior 4 years. We don't change a value just because it sells.
Right.
It stays that same value until the next reappraisal, unless there's been physical construction take place added onto it or removed from it. So it would remain at the same value. People say, well, you raise my taxes every other year. And I said, not unless the county commission changed the tax rate, or if you live in the city, they changed the tax rate. We didn't change anything. It stays the same 4 years unless you've taken something off or added something to.
Well, that brings me to another question. I want to talk about the dispute process. I would think just from a practical perspective that when the market crashed, and you had these homes that were selling very cheap through foreclosure or short sale or what have you, I would think it was quite challenging for the assessor's office to keep up with those values and to really indicate a true value on those properties. Because I know that I sold some homes that, the builder may have had $600,000 in them and lost it through foreclosure. And I had one in particular not far from here that a buyer picked up for $300,000, and she actually went to the assessor's office and disputed her property value because they had it at $507,000. She had just purchased for $300,000. And I personally, at my real estate office there in East Brainerd, I received an assessment a few years back, and I thought it was much higher than what it should have been. I actually, before just getting on the phone and calling out of emotion and saying, hey, I don't agree with this, I actually took the time and did some research and looked at some adjacent commercial properties and did some comparison to my own property. And I did disagree with the new assessment. So I called in to voice my complaint and to dispute what the new assessment was. And I asked for a hearing because that's what the letter said. If you don't agree, ask for a hearing. So I asked for a hearing. Well, the gentleman let me know I didn't have to come in, that he would look into that closer for me. Now, I appreciate being a busy person. Number one, I appreciate the fact I didn't have to jump in my car and go down there in person and have some long drawn out hearing. The guy was very helpful. He took my information and he did follow up with me, and they did agree with me. They agreed with me that the assessment was too high, and they did end up lowering it. So for anyone listening out there, I'm just curious as to how that dispute process works, how it works maybe behind the scenes, and how the hearing would work if someone actually had to come in and have a hearing.
Sabrina, they just didn't want you coming in.
I don't blame them.
We'll let Sterling say how it is for the rest of us, but they didn't want you coming in.
Well, the process of it is during a reappraisal, there is a card, blue card. It goes out, has an old value and has a new value on it. And you look at the new value and you say, I don't agree with that. And you have to look and think about, what does the market really say my house or my business is worth? And if there is a point of contention, you say it was 200,000, it's really only worth 150. You follow the instructions on the card. You call in.
Right.
We do have it where you can email in during a reappraisal year, so that you could just send it in. If you didn't want to talk to anybody, you could send it in. And the process of it is that goes back to the supervisor. The supervisor distributes it to the appraiser. The appraiser goes out and takes a physical look at it. Is there something wrong with the structure? Is there something mismeasured? Is there something taken away? You always go out when you're looking at a parcel, you're looking at two things. You're looking at physical building and you're looking at land. Is the land what it's supposed to be? Is there a river running across it that you didn't see before, power lines and those things? So there's adjustments that can be made for that. Is there something that we didn't know about? The upstairs is unfinished and we have it finished? Is the basement finished and we didn't know? Because if we do come out and something's more than what it was, then we have opportunity to change it to increase it.
Right.
So we do want people to know it's just not about complaining, but if there is something wrong, we can come out and adjust the value either way. It can remain the same. It can be lowered, but it also can be raised because you've contested the value. The process then goes to the appraiser, comes back, should relook at it. It's again the second and third look. And then they would send back a letter of notification saying we either agree with the value that you come up with. Now, if you had an appraisal, you would bring the appraisal in, and they would look at that appraisal. Those appraisers aren't always right, but they can be. Again, it's just an opinion. And we have shown people where their appraiser maybe it was too low or maybe it was too high. So we do that. But the process then, if it is contentious still, you have opportunity beginning June the 1st to go to the Board of Equalization, and you will go sit before the board and they will hear both sides. They're a neutral group of men and women who sit and listen. They're taxpayers here in Hamilton County. They'll listen to the assessor side, they'll listen to the taxpayer side, and they'll make a decision, and they can either keep it the same, lower it, or increase it also. But they're obviously, if you get to that point, we feel like pretty strong about what we have, and you would feel pretty strong. And so at that point, if it still goes, it can go to State Board of Equalization, and then they would make a determination. You can actually go to court, but I don't know that we've had any in court recently in the years that I've been there, because once it gets there, there's somebody's missing, and we find out what it is and come to a point of saying, this is what the true value is, and people understand it by then.
So it sounds like there's a process in place.
Very much a process, very much a timely process in that as well. It's going back out and re-looking at the figures. It's re-looking at everything to make sure we're doing a mass appraisal. It's just not a fee appraisal. It's a mass appraisal. It's 149,000 pieces of real estate that we're looking at over a period, and we're putting values out that are being keyed in and coming out. So we could miss something. Even though we try not to, we could miss something. And again, it's for equalization, that we see that all properties are being equal within the like properties that they're compared to.
Now, if you're elected to be the next assessor of property, how accessible do you plan to be, and how accessible do you want to be? And when do you think, what kind of situation do you think would call for you to be the one that someone talks to directly?
Oh, to talk to me directly? Anybody can call me. We have a front desk that would ring back there, and they would say they would have a call. Wouldn't be screening any calls unless I was in a meeting, or if I was in a training session, or I was out of the office. That would be the only time. So I would be able to be reached at any point in time. And, once we're closed, I don't know many people thinking about their appraisal at 10 o'clock at night, but
Right.
I wouldn't care.
Unless you're me.
Yeah. There are people who have called me that have known me for years. They'd call and say, I got my card in the mail and it's 10 o'clock at night. And they say, well, you need to look at that. And say, well, can you call me tomorrow at 8 o'clock
really?
in the morning? So yes, a multitude of times. It never stops. Once people know that you're in the assessor's office, you just don't go home at 4 o'clock or whenever we close at 5 during the reappraisal. You just don't go home then. People that know you, it's the grocery store, the ice cream shop, the mall, wherever you go, people are asking you about it.
That's true. Well, it sounds like you do want to be accessible, just to even want to partner with the realtors and do some training and some classes. Now, have you thought about doing that with the home builders also?
Yes, I've actually talked to them about doing with the home builders and them showing us how they're building, what they're building, and the cost of what it's costing. Because we have the approaches is income, market, and cost. So we need to make sure our costs that are in our program are being true to the real cost of what it takes to build a house in Hamilton County. After meeting with Dale Mabey and talking with him and the Home Builders Association, I'd love to make sure that we did something with them, 3 times a year, 4 times a year to make sure we're staying on top, as well as us informing them how we're doing and what we're doing. So again, it's government and private sector working together.
Yeah, I think that's very, very important. Now, one thing I've noticed on some of the tax records when I pull them up is we don't agree on square feet sometimes. Like I may have a home that's actually 2,000 square feet, but the tax appraisal may indicate that it's 2,500 square feet. So I'm kind of curious as to what steps are taken to measure a home right now from the assessor's office. And are they, if they're measuring around the exterior, are they deducting for a garage, those types of things? How is a home measured typically?
It is. It's measured in a base area, which is the first floor living space, heated and cooled space. And then the garage is an appendage, a porch, a screen porch, a Florida room is an appendage, and it's figured on a percentage. So it's not figured into that 2,500.
Okay.
But there should be on the Assess Pro, there's a breakdown now, which we can help again, making sure that we're getting proper identification of the numbers on the first floor, the second floor, and the third floor. That'll help the realtors and also help us. We don't always know because we're doing fee appraisals. We're outside. We don't make appointments to go to people's houses except during the reappraisal. So we are at some point estimating, is that second story? I built a new house 2 years ago. They came out and appraised my house. And the appraisers called me and said, now you're upstairs finished. And I said, no, I've only got 1,800 square feet down. And they had a little bit different. And it's where the wall stops, where a garage, where an inside utility comes into something that we can't always get into that. So there is a point of estimating, and it's usually to the lower side.
Right.
But there is a breakdown where you can see first, second, third floor. But like you're selling a house and the basement's been finished, they did it themselves. We won't know it. And so it could end up being you counting that living space, and we're thinking it's an unfinished basement.
Okay, well, that's good information. For anyone that doesn't know how you determine the assessed value and how that's calculated, kind of explain that.
$100,000 house, that's the appraisal, which the terminology gets switched around by people for the most part. That is the appraised value. That's the market value of that house. We do have a construction cost, what it would take to replace that. If it's a rental unit, we have an idea of what it costs to what that house is worth in the rental market. So we have that, but it is the process of it is figuring 100% market value. So that's $100,000 house times 0.25, which will give you 25% assessment. That's what it is in the state of Tennessee for real estate, for residential property. It's 40% on commercial. It is 30% on, I just had a brain. We have a 30% and a 55% on those, on state property, which is the railroad and things like that.
Right.
And then personal property is the 30%. So, but the 25% on the house is then you got a $25,000 assessment divided by 100. And when you divide that by 100 times the tax rate, gives you the total amount of taxes.
Wow. So there's a process. Now, does that change periodically? That formula,
no,
or
the
is that pretty
formula
much
doesn't
okay?
change.
That's in place.
Yeah. Again, $100,000 house times 0.25 gives you a $25,000 assessment. Divided by 100 gives you 250 times whatever tax rate that you find commissioner set. And then the county commission, the city council, whatever, if you live in one of the municipalities in Hamilton County.
Sounds like you might need to be good at math to be the assessor of property. Well, Sterling, for anyone that's trying to make up their mind right now, I know that today is the last day of early voting. The election is next week. Mm-hmm. And just tell our listeners why they should vote for you for assessor of property.
Experience in the office, leadership ability, temperament. You're going to have people that are going to contest the value. They're going to contest your integrity, and so temperament would be the other thing. And then just a vision for the assessor's office in the next 8 to 12 years, what it needs to take place to continue the fine work that it's done with Claude Ramsey and Bill Bennett. And I think those things are important to lead that office. And I think that Claude and Bill have been an example of that. And I think that's why they signed on to endorse me. They've seen my experience. Mm-hmm. They know it. They know how I handle people. They know my leadership ability. Mm-hmm. And they know that I've even stood toe to toe with them sometimes. Yeah. And
they probably respect you for that.
And I hope that's what that is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I would just ask that the taxpayers get out and make sure you vote. But I would ask that you vote for Sterling Jatan and the middle of the back page on the bottom, and make sure you make the right mark.
Okay. And so what is your website if they want to go get more information on you?
SterlingJatan.com.
SterlingJatan.com. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here with us in the studios today. As a matter of fact, Mark and I are about to detour out of here and go vote ourselves.
That's right.
Please tune in next Tuesday from 11 to 12. We'll have some great guests here at Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. This has been brought to you by the Sabrena Realty Hour. Mark and Sabrena. Again, if you're thinking about selling a home or buying a home, please call us at 423-499-7780. That's 499-7780, or visit us at SabrenaRealty.com. We'd love to come out, talk to you about selling your home or even finding you a home. Thank you again, and we'll be back with you next Tuesday, 12:40 a.m. Hot News Talk Radio. Have a great week.